Hello, my name is Toby. I'd like to introduce you to my colleague Eric. The purpose of today is to talk about the teamwork video game, and we'd like to do an introduction and a demonstration. Um, this will be a brief overview of its key elements and how it relates to teamwork and leadership within the next gen content. What we're going to do is show you a couple of slides just to give an overview of where we're going, and then we're going to actually get into the meat of the demonstration. This will be one of a series of videos that will probably go into more depth to each feature or part of the video itself, and also, of course, our product and services. So with that effect, we're just going to take ourselves out for the slide. All right, so I mean, you can read the slide yourself, guys. I don't want to have to read it to you, but the key thing is, like any video game, it's scalable. It's client-server technology. It's now available on Android, on Windows, and on Mac. All right. So, what's the purpose of the game? Well, the purpose of the game is to help teams and leaders learn how to collaborate more effectively. In fact, the game is a measurement of your collaborative intelligence. Why is it a measurement of that? Because the game workflow is designed such that you can only solve the 40 plus challenges we have in the game through collaboration. An individual can't solve it. More importantly, to understand, is that the game is designed for total noobs in playing video games, so it's not designed for esports specialists or anything like that. There's no technical skills other than the basic requirement to move in a 3D environment. And the other aspect is it's not an escape game. It is a professional tool that comes with 360 learning feedback modules that we have sitting outside of the game and also inside the game. We're going to talk about difficulty in a minute within one of the slides that I have. So if you could go to the next slide, Eric.
Yep.
Okay, so here, just to give you a quick overview, that the game is broken into 11 chapters and that there are 40 challenges as we go through the game. And you can see how we've represented some of them here, which you can get from our slide deck. Next slide, Eric. The CinQ mission is actually based on a disruptive disruptive innovation scenario built around Clayton Christensen and his concept of disruptive innovation. You can actually read this, but it's basically a typical tale of a rebel group chasing a kind of dictatorial corporate organization. There's not being very nice out there, and the rebel team has to go and steal something from their underground laboratory, something that's important, something that will change the game later on. I'm just trying to give a brief overview of that. And the next slide. The characters within the game are 5 characters. Each of these characters are multidisciplinary, so that each of them has a specialist job that the other cannot do. That's where you start to see how each of the characters, that is the players, and how they move through the game interlocks with each other. The first character we have is a planner. His role is to be the air traffic controller within the game. This character actually stays in the van, doesn't actually go out actively in there, and has a number of tools with which to be able to help the team organize and plan. The hacker, his job is to be able to control the infrastructure, computer infrastructure within the actual circle building. The technician is to bypass the security systems. The acrobat, well, the job of the acrobat is to get up into the ventilation shaft and to be able to negotiate the small spaces that the others can't get into. And the engineer understands some of the other elements within the building's infrastructure that I'm not going to go into too much detail because it kind of gives the game away. But 5 characters, plus there is a coaching character as well within the game. Next slide, please, Eric. One of the key components to understand about the game is the concept of difficulty. And for a lot of business trainers out there, this is a difficult concept. Why is it a difficult concept? Because a lot of the time, unfortunately, we think that in training exercises, removing difficulty from the game makes it an easier learning journey for the participants. Well, we actually come at that from another direction. This diagram is actually born from the sports world. And you can see that what we have are the dimensions of skill and challenge. Where we're focused upon is in the top 2 quadrants. We're focused on people coming with a low skill to develop a high skill by working through high challenges or difficulty. So that in the beginning, there will be a level of anxiety and a level of stress. But as you continue to work together as a team, actually solving the problems, solving the challenges, increases collectively your skills such that the game becomes easier. That doesn't seem obvious at first, but that actually is the process. So we actually use difficulty as the key pedagogical method to help train leaders and teams. Next slide, Eric, or are we into the game? All right, Eric, would you like to talk about this a bit?
Yeah, totally. One of the things you'll notice, and you might have already seen it with the pictures of the characters and the picture at the very start, is that the game looks sort of cartoonish, right? We've got these simplified geometric graphics, and that's actually for a very specific reason. The way our brain works, realism is not always actually the best way to represent things, especially in some specific contexts. This is very well illustrated with the concept of the uncanny valley. If you look at the bottom, it's this concept where as you're trying to make something look more realistic, you go from something very cartoony, you make it look a little bit nicer, and you get to a certain point where it starts looking weird, it starts looking odd, and that completely takes you out of it, right? Your brain just says, nope, that's not right, that doesn't look right, and you lose the possibility of getting immersed and sort of feeling what the character feels and believing that the world is real. And if you add to that the concept that you can see illustrated here above, that when we lower realism, we actually have this notion that we ourselves sort of project ourselves inside the character a lot more easily. Someone with a defined face is a specific character, whereas this really simplified shape is just somebody. Could be anybody, could be yourself. So what we've done is we've used this simplified graphic style as a way to get people to really, really, really get involved in the experience of the game and in the teamwork experience. They're not going to get distracted by something that looks really shiny and fancy with tons of details. They're going to focus on what they're doing, how they're interacting together, how they're communicating, and how they're reaching their objectives. That's a really core aspect of how the mechanics and the design of the game helps you learn, right? We can actually take that sort of to another step with this notion of how there are actually different types of immersion tied to realism, right? So if you imagine like a medical or even like a military simulation, right? They have to have really high levels of realism because what they're training specifically is how to manipulate objects and environments, right? So, in the medical field, you'll have to manipulate tools, you have to be interacting with specific detailed elements. Whereas on the other side of the spectrum, if you're talking about something that's purely about, action, not as in the physical action, but about taking action as a team, exploring an environment and that sort of stuff, communicating, sharing information. Well, realism isn't necessarily as important. And in fact, as I was saying, could distract you. So we've positioned ourselves here on the right of this scale in this sort of virtual, social, and action-oriented side of things, which is typically where you'll find video games and role-playing with that notion of immersion. So this is a key element that defines where the game is placed in terms of type of experience.
Okay, Eric, thanks very much for that overview on particularly this understanding of high realism versus low realism. It does confuse a lot of people who've never played video games, who are looking at video game technology, metaverse technologies, their appropriateness and their relevance for business training. One of the things, just to finish or to give a summary on that, is that if you're in first responder training, whether you're with paramedics, etc., then you do need it to be real. That's where the Unreal Engine comes in, because the quality that the engine can actually give of what the participants, the players, can see is phenomenal. Whereas in the area of where we're focusing on, which is primarily social relationships and collaboration, it's why we're focused more, for want of a better word, on a cartoon style. Primarily because the concept of presence, or the ability to suspend disbelief for the players, is much easier. Okay, so now what we're going to move into is actually the game for real. So this just gives you a few good snippets of what the game looks like, but I'm sure you're hungry to actually see the game. So we're actually going to go from the point of view of choosing a character, and my beautiful assistant on the right. This is the character selection window. And what we're going to actually just is, before we do, is you can see that what you're actually looking at is that there are some areas where you can customize the character. Eric, you can customize the masks, for example, etc. It's very basic. Gives you a background, tells you what your role is, tells you what your specialist kit is. All right? And if Eric, because he's kindly moved his seat back, if he then just scrolls through, we have the hacker, which is and then we have the technician with the same characteristic. What's interesting about this is with the padlock that you can see over the character, it means that one of the other players has actually chosen this character. So we have the technician, and then we have the acrobat, and then we have the engineer, and then we have the planner, and then the hacker. And then we'll talk about this later, but there's another character that can be coming, which is the coach. But we'll actually talk about that in a separate video. For here, we're just going to focus on this. So Eric's going to join the session.
Yep. I think one of the interesting points to make at this point in the game is that these roles are not just cosmetic. It's not just role play, right? Each of these characters is going to have a specific skill set, and it's all about sort of putting the team in a situation where they have to work together, because they all have different roles in the mission, different abilities, and different things that they're going to do. So that's the first thing we front load, right? We put you in this situation of, okay, pick your character, and this is actually a meaningful choice.
I think that's an important point. And I think the other piece is the team, who should have done some preparatory work to get into here, is suddenly faced with, okay, how are we going to work together? So this is the van. This is the command van. You can see that all the characters are in here. It's very, Ocean's 11, Mission Impossible, that's the type of thing we've tried to characterize. So the team is in a van, which is camouflage, which is sitting on the edge of the mission area and the objective. Each character has a tablet, and if Eric opens the tablet in this case,
Yep.
Do you want to talk about the tablet?
Yeah, absolutely. So the tablet is really where you're going to start this first phase of the game, right? And for all intents and purposes, the game has sort of a few main phases that you go through. The first one is the preparation phase. So we're going to give you through this interface a series of information, right? Of different documents, different elements that you have to work with to, as a group, plan your mission. So you're figuring out what you're going to do together, where you're going to go, what your objective is, how you're going to reach that objective, etc. So the first thing we do is we give you this mission statement. Really straightforward. We tell you exactly, okay, you're a team, you've got this objective, you're supposed to reach the secret lab that's in the basement, floor labeled -1. And we also give you a few tips of, okay, so, how you can start planning this, right? We give a bit of information about how you can approach this. From this point on, you get the profile, right? So this is something we already saw on the previous screen, where it tells you who your character is, what their role is, and what their specialist kit is. With a special note about this specialist kit, because that's really the key element that defines the difference between these characters. It's what's going to determine who goes where and who does what as the plan sort of unfurls. One of the really, really core pieces of information that we give you is a full map of where you are. So, for a bit of context, this mission is very much like sort of a Ocean's 11 type heist situation, right? Trying to get into this building unnoticed, trying to retrieve a formula and get back out without tripping in any of the security systems. So what happens is you start here in the Black Swan van, you can see in the corner behind my head.
Yeah.
And your target building is just half a block away. And as I zoom in, you can see we've got lots of information, different icons on the map, tons of little bits of things you're going to be able to find. As I go down to the floor below, you can actually see there's sort of this critical path to the target area that's marked in red here in the test lab. So the team's going to sort of get this information and explore and try to figure out, okay, so we have to go there. And there are lots of hints on this map of what they're going to do. The last bit of information we give you is a series of documents. What's interesting here, and I'm actually going to flip over to another character, is that the way we've got the documents set up, everyone actually has different documents. Some documents are in common. So you'll notice, for example, this code cracker is common to most of the characters. And so this document, gives a bit of information that's available to everyone, but there are also documents that are unique to each character. So what we're doing is we're giving you two sort of short-term objectives. The first one is to figure out what you're doing as a team, figure out what your objective is, and set up a plan. The second one is we're giving you lots of hidden information, right? In documents, in different bits of the map. And we're telling you, well, you have to be effective as a team to identify the key elements, the critical information in this, to be able to do that, to set that plan up correctly, right? And one of the ways this manifests is when a team gets together, if they're a really, really effective team, typically they'll pretty quickly figure out, okay, we only need to focus on some information to be able to put a plan together. And within 15 minutes, 20 minutes, they'll have a pretty decent plan put together. But more often than not, we get the reverse, where people sort of panic. They don't know how to deal with complexity, information overload, or they're not able to share this information effectively. We'll have situations where everyone just reads every document out loud in front of the whole team instead of sort of reading, sort of summarizing, and then sharing the bits that are necessary. And this will waste time or create too much complexity, which will basically put them in a situation where they fail to plan, right?
I
And this
think
happens.
I think
Oh,
the
yeah,
key
go ahead.
no, just no. I think you're bang on there. I think the key thing about if you go back to where we're sitting in the van, so you have
Yeah,
all the documents, right? So one of the things, if you go from the planner's point of view, if you look out from
yeah,
the planner's eye, is you can now see. You can just see a good
Uh,
picture. Here you all are in a project room, so to speak, and you have a set of documents. So what is the first thing you do? And the first thing you do is generally what most people don't do, which is, what is my goal? So here at the beginning of this session, what's really about to take place is a proof of concept of your teamwork. Can you function as a team? Can you collaborate? Can you communicate? Can you establish a framework within which that you're going to move forward with your colleagues? So one of the things to understand what's about to take place now is you're going to go through a gameplay. You're going to go through a workflow that's designed to test those competencies and skills. It's designed to test your teamwork, your leadership, and your soft skills. This particular point here, it breeds a lot of frustration. People get really upset with each other. They really don't know how to function. They really don't know how to bring it all together. But rather than focusing on what are the soft skills necessary to solve this game, I think it's important to realize that it isn't the problem solving or understanding the techniques to solve the problems coming. The only way that these problems can be solved is how you function as a team. I think that's the key thing I wanted to say there, Eric.
yeah, absolutely. Um, I think we're gonna, from this we sort of move on to the next phase, the next big phase of the game, which is okay. So you've got your plan, you know where you're going, you have a rough idea, and now you have to step out and actually go on the mission, right? So here I'm gonna use a little admin console.
So I think it's important before you just say that
Yeah,
that's an admin. I couldn't remember whether you could bring it up here, but
yeah,
here what you're actually looking at is the workflow or the game flow. All right, and what's important about well, I'm not quite sure what to call this the shortcut, if you want,
yeah,
is that it allows the coach who's in the game to be able to manage different sessions with the teams. So it's kind of for all of you guys who play normal video games, it's kind of a save. So
yeah,
if you really work well as your team and you get to level 4 getting your key cards, but that takes you 1 or 2 sessions to get to, well, instead of starting at the beginning of the game, you can all start at that point. It's also a useful tool for us to demonstrate where we are in the game, and it enables people to fully understand what it is they're going to go through. The other shortcut that comes up is primarily for the coach and the games master a way of controlling the game that enables them to match the game's difficulty, if it's required, with the team's ability to overcome. There are some times when some teams find it just too difficult to be able to work together, and they need a little bit of help. And this allows us to be able to do that in some situations. For example, you can toggle the alarm on and off, hack the CCTV, and so on and so forth. Okay, back
yeah.
to you, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've just toggled the alarm off because for this demo, if for some reason we get caught, you know, we'll hand wave it. It never happened. We're just demonstrating stuff. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take these characters out of the van and move them straight to the back of the building, right? So we've already decided we're going through the back door. We've made our way there, and I'm sort of going to explain what happens once we get there. So the first thing you'll notice here, everyone disappeared. That's because everyone left the van except for this character, the planner, right? So Toby hinted at it earlier. The planner has a specific role. Planner actually manages the mission at a distance from within the van. So what you'll notice here is as I open up the map, you can actually see on the map a live position tracker for every character in the team. So as the planner, I know where everyone is at any instant. we'll get to a second phase where the planner has even more information at their hands, within this map. But to start with, that's what you get. So I'm now going to move over to our other characters. And what I'm going to first demonstrate here by switching over to the technician is just I'm going to show you the general area where we are and what we're trying to do. So this is the back of the building. We came in from this side on the left and approached this. As you can see here, there's a door, and this is where we're trying to enter. I've actually positioned this character here for a very specific reason, which is that I expect, and I know this, but I'll be demonstrating it. I expect something to come along here and possibly, notice our team. In this case, a drone that will be patrolling around the building. What's interesting about this is that the team members don't know this when they approach, right? So they'll be walking in and trying to open the back door here and trying to sort of just walk up to it and get things done, but they might get, noticed by the security system.
I think I
Yeah,
think just if just behind Eric's chair to his left, you can actually see the alarm that he's just moved. All right,
yeah. Actually, you know what? I'll just hide myself for a second.
like you can
There we
see
go.
the alarm level there. All right, as that alarm level rises, that's what's going to tell you whether you're going to reach your first level of failure or not. What your objective is for that alarm not to rise. Okay, so it's
Absolutely.
very much like a rogue stealth game in that sense. That you leave no fingerprints, you leave no traces of your action here.
Yeah. So there's one other thing I'm going to try to do before entering the building, and this is to hack the CCTV breaker box. So I'm controlling the hacker. I'm just going to walk up to this and interact with it. The reason I'm doing this is made clear by some of the documents that basically hint towards the fact that there's a camera security system in the building, and if you don't disable it, well, you're probably going to get caught if you try to walk in. The hacker happens to have an override key that works on this kind of computer. So I'm going to just click here and connect to it, and hopefully I'll be able to override the system and take control.
Well,
Um,
I think
as
it's
it,
important to
yeah,
point out is that this is dependent upon the team at the beginning understanding and communicating with each other and recognizing what their special skills are. All right,
yep.
so that's really important.
Um, you'll have noticed the alarm level shot up. So this is what I was hinting at. There's this drone that came around, and since I wasn't paying attention, the drone noticed me, right? So now the drone's uh, trying to follow me and has uh, increased the alarm level. In this case, if the alarm level had reached this level, we would have triggered failure, and when that happens, you get a nice failure screen, and you go back to the van and get to start again. This is actually a very important core principle of how the game functions. We're pointing you in the direction of for your forward failure, right? We're telling you, okay, so sure, you failed and you have to start again. But this next time you try, you'll have learned something. You'll have understood mechanics, understood how to react to the drone. You'll have noticed that there's a drone, et cetera, et cetera. And so you'll be able to progress further. And this is true in the game, but it's also true in any other situation, right? If you don't try stuff and experiment, it's very hard to progress and learn new things. So it's sort of a core component of what we're teaching with these mechanics. Um, just to point out one of the very interesting things with this drone, uh, it's actually very simple. The way it functions is quite basic. It's going around the building, and if it sees anyone, it goes towards them, and as it approaches, the alarm level increases until it hits maximum. As you saw, it's this big red light with a little drone that flies around. There's even a bit of sound, quite obvious. What's complicated about it is people's natural inabilities to react to things as a team. We've seen it countless times where the drone is coming towards people. Someone, and as a coach, we can see this live. Someone will have the drone coming straight at them in the middle of the screen. and they will not say anything. They will not move out of the way. And when the failure screen comes on and the rest of the team is puzzled, asking, okay, what happened? Sometimes they won't even say anything, right? They'll act as if nothing was there. And this is sometimes, because they're afraid to talk, they're afraid to be the cause of failure. It can be because they didn't think it was important. And when we question it, it's something people will say, oh, I didn't think the drone mattered. Oh, I didn't know that was a drone. And that type of element, talking about that, communicating, sharing information, is something that seems so basic and so fundamental to working as a team that it shouldn't be complicated, but it is. And it almost always is with every team we've trained in the game to some extent or another. It's difficult for them to get past that and to figure out that, okay, wait, I'm just part of the system. I have to make sure that the rest of my team is with me, understands what I'm seeing, understands what I'm doing, understands what I'm capable of.
I think that's such an important point, Eric, because one of the things that we discover and one of the takeaways that people have from playing the game is how relevant that is back in their own world. They suddenly become aware of, I'm making assumptions, but these assumptions actually negatively impact my day to day business. And suddenly, in something simple, a piece of teamwork, and finding a strategy to dodge a drone, they go back to basic elements of communication or not communication in a sense. And it's actually something which, when we talk about forward failure, or we talk about positive error, is something that's not common sense. It goes against the grain that you're going to learn by failing. It's one of those crazy things that the only way you can learn is through failure, but all of our education system and everything we do in work is to minimize error, to minimize failure. But with the new concepts around high performance teamwork and collaborative intelligence, it's actually through prototyping, through experimenting, that you actually create the skills that are going to move you forward on. And this dodging the drone or moving around the drone seems to be such a simple thing, but is so complicated for many teams that it's really quite revealing.
Yep. So I think now we're going to jump forward a bit and without really going into detail about all the mechanics, because that's not the point of this video, we're going to give you sort of a brief overview and just show a few of the systems that are there and give you an idea of what's happening in the game, right? So I'm going to once again bring this up and I'm going to sort of just jump us one chapter further, and we're now inside the building. The first thing I'm going to point out is, we're in this area. It's a bit dark. This is often something that sort of the gut reaction people get when they enter the building. That's actually designed on purpose. It is a game mechanic, right? Dealing with that darkness, dealing with not seeing everything very well, and how you can fix that as a team, how you can share information and help each other is part of the challenge, right? One other thing
Can I
is,
can I say that?
yeah,
Eric,
yeah,
Eric, is your mouse is there?
yeah.
So that I think what Eric's saying then, he says it better than I did, but I just want to bring up the point is for particularly for people in human resources or in learning development that have a limited understanding or even a limited experience of playing video games, and certainly video games for business training, is their expectations are very different from what actually are in video games. Everything in the video game is designed as a game mechanic, and light is one of those, you know, and so if you think that something makes it difficult, then I guarantee you it's something that we purposely put there to do that. We haven't like forgotten something and okay, we're making this too difficult. No, it is. All right, there's areas that are light and there's areas that's dark, and it's part of the communication process and collaboration process that each of the players and participants need to have within each other. Okay.
Yeah. Um, so I'm gonna sort of jump over to another character here just to sort of point out a few interesting things. Um, One of the things that we do is actually as the group moves into the building, there are different ways in, and here I've got the acrobat. I'm actually gonna sidestep this drone here and move over to this ventilation outlet. And what's interesting is the acrobat's special skill, along with being able to climb, as you saw here on the roof, is actually that the acrobat is really small and agile, so they can go through the ventilation system. So as the rest of the team is trying to get inside the building, inside the office rooms, etc., the acrobat's got a sort of a separate role here. And the way this functions is effectively a maze, which you're exploring. It's not very clear where you can and can't go, right? It's just this sort of open maze where everything looks the same. But if I switch over to the planner and actually look, I've got the ventilation system map. And now we can see where the acrobat is and where the acrobat wants to go. So in this case, we went from the roof, and the place we want to exit is the generator room. This creates a situation where two team members have to actively communicate and share information to get through this environment. One sees the map, one sees the environment. And just to add one extra bit here, you'll notice there are actually extra obstacles within the environment that are not on the map. So we're creating a situation where these two characters, these two team members, are communicating on a relatively continuous basis, while the rest of the team is trying to get to their objective as well. This
Can I,
creates
yeah,
cross communication,
yeah. I
right?
did.
Yeah,
Well, I didn't. Well, cross communication. Sure about that. I tell you what it creates is I'm speaking, you're not speaking. They have to work out because you've got two of the people trying to organize through the maze, but the air traffic controller, the planner, is also coordinating with the rest of the team on the ground.
yeah,
And so what they have to work out is where is the space for us all to communicate? What tools and techniques can we use to do this? Now, we're not going to give any hints in this video, but, well, we're just not going to give any hints. But what's interesting, well, because it's difficult, isn't it? Right?
yeah.
So,
No, I, I think the way we can put it is from a coach's point of view, right? As you're observing teams, it's often extremely revealing about their relationships, who takes more of a leadership role, who steps more in the background, and that sort of stuff. This situation where we create, I guess, a simple way to say it would be sort of forced communication chaos, right? Is a very interesting thing as a coach. And that's something that's specifically built as a game mechanic. So again, this type of video game environment is something that allows us to do this in a very controlled and sort of fashioned way, right? We built it to do this.
well, I think there's,
Um,
yeah, I think just go
yeah,
back, Eric, for me, just go back
yeah,
to, because it's interesting you say from the coach point of view, and I just want to expand on that, because the coach's job within the game is not to tell the players what to do. The coach's job is to get to get the players to see um, the problem that they have to solve without the coach giving the answer to it. So it's a without going too deep in it, it's a Socratic approach. So if somebody asks the coach a question, the coach is very likely to give it back as a question or to take that question and give it to another team member so that you actually collaborate around this. So the game is I think one of the top executives, when he had his team going through this, said, "This game reveals your true self." And actually, what happens when you experience frustration? It tests your emotional intelligence. It tests your self-awareness. It tests your self-control. which are the key components we know of soft skills. So something as simple as cross communication, right, can raise the heat very quickly in the team. And I think that what Eric's saying is, yes, we have forced that as a way to test and to create a learning curve for the teams.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're going to sort of by briefly flying through a few more of the challenges, it'll sort of give a good idea, a good general overview of how we're doing this, right? We're not going to go into details and we're not going to show everything, but it's going to give you a hint at what might be happening in the background here. So here I've gone another sort of chapter forward, right? And we're now in a security office, and there are key cards we can grab here to open doors, right? Um, this is a relatively simple system. You get the key, you open the door. But again, there are subtleties about it, about how it's implemented, that create something where the team has to actually think as a group and interact to get this right.
Can I just
But
add something? I think
yeah,
the best way, I was just thinking about that the best way, because it was one of the clients that I think taught, the best way to think about this whole video game is as if you're just all suddenly being brought together to manage a new project. I think it was one of our clients that talked about that was the best way, that you have been given this license, you've been sent by the senior executives, you have to turn it to a building, and you're turning up for the first day to manage a project. How are you going to do that? How are you going to set your goals? So I kind of the key cards and all the rest of it, and how that fits into it, and how you're going to plan it, how you going to coordinate with it. That gives the context behind what you're talking about there.
yeah, it's almost like the parameters of the team project, and then you have to figure out how to fit within these parameters and how to sort of navigate them, right?
Yeah.
Um, I think one of the really important things to understand, which is sort of where we're getting at this point, is as we move forward. So we've been sort of adding systems, right? So, you get the 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 map and people communicating across different places and objectives. You get key cards. You can see a drone sort of moving around in the background here. One of the things that happens is we start with things that are relatively simple, and as we go along, we reach more and more involved systems and problems where more team members will have to collaborate actively on any given task. So if I actually get us over to the lasers, right? You might remember briefly seeing on the map earlier a laser room. Well, this is the laser room. So I'm here with the technician, and I've got lasers I have to go through. Very spy movie. Um, to get past these lasers actually involves basically every single person on the team. You can have a person here who sees the lasers. You're going to have the hacker here in a room with lots and lots of computers that correspond to personnel within the building. If I actually go and give ourselves a few documents that the engineer and technician and potentially hacker can go and get, then we get extra documents here in our planner interface, which correspond to these employees on the computers and to the lasers, right? So getting all this information, getting it together, again, not saying how, will allow you to get past this. But to get there, you have to get every single team member involved across the building doing different things. So we're getting to a point where we've slowly been giving you challenges that bring you along to a point where you're ready to face what's really the objective of teamwork, which is to get everyone working towards the same goal and doing different things to get there, right?
I think
And
the other,
and if
I don't think it's just that everything's going towards the same goal, because the other piece is you're about to experience things you've never experienced before. So how do you react to that? Can you turn on a dime? Can you be agile? Can you be creative in the way you think about solving problems? Can you experiment? Can you go test, fail, and come back again? Have you got character? When you fail one time, do you just give up, go home? Can you cope? Can you cope with that? So it really is a test of the key components to make a successful project. I think that's the way I would just
Yep.
add into what you're saying there.
No, absolutely. I think I just sort of, for the sake of demonstration, I just want to get us
No, no, you're right.
over
No,
to the end
yeah.
by showing. So we've gotten past the lasers, right? Now there's this big vault door we have to open. Um, this is where things start getting a bit interesting. You have the acrobat actually here in the generator room interacting with switches and buttons that control different things. You've got people in labs playing around with batteries and various systems. Someone in a server room with various things to do there. So globally, we've gotten you to explore what we've created as a pretty rich and complex environment with lots of different places to go and things to do and things to discover, right? Because as Toby was pointing out, there's this notion that you don't know what you're going to face next until you get there, and you have to sort of be ready to sort of improvise and adapt and just shift the way you're acting and thinking to get further and move along the process until if I take us all the way to the end, right? You get to this final room, the secret lab. This is your objective. You've been
Have you
trying to
missed?
get here all along.
No, man. Have you missed? Have you missed my favorite, which is the
Ah, I might have
yeah.
absolutely.
That's mine. Like I love this one.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah. I thought you just
Okay, yeah. So before you get to the lab, there's this room. And so this is the typical, very Mission Impossible style room. It's labeled on the map as pressure plates room, right? So if I go over to my planner, you saw the character in this room with sort of a checkered floor. Well, as a planner, I can actually peek into the room,
I have.
and
You
now,
haven't actually talked about the CCTV actually. So I think
yeah,
that's a good point to
yeah.
bring.
At the very start, when we had the hacker hacking the CCTV, this gave I hinted at it very very early on. This gives the planner the ability to actually look through the eye of every camera inside the building. So the planner really has this role of guide in the sense that they can see more than the others. They can see places that the team members haven't been yet. And so, you know, they know more about the environment. And as a result, they're able to coordinate things. It's not
No, but
coordinating
no,
because
but
they've been
no, no,
told
but
to, right?
no, but doesn't it get interesting, right? Because the way that Eric said, they know more, right? So the air traffic controller acquires intelligence. Yeah. Did they tell the others?
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
And
Did
another
they?
bit is I said they know more, but
No,
they know more from like a theoretical point of view, right?
right.
They're the person who has like the eyes on the numbers, but doesn't know how it is in
No,
the field.
no. So you
And
get
so that correspondence is fascinating.
no, no. It's cool. So you can see that here. What we're looking at is the little green squares, right? And you have the character over there. Well, guess what? What have they got to do, Eric?
Well, it's pretty, if you step on the green squares, your alarm level increases and you fail, right? It's simple pressure plates. The bit that gets kind of crazy is at this point, normally, well, you've had to cut the power at some point, so you don't have access to the cameras. And I can actually go here and cut power grid, and boom, no more camera access. We're not going to tell you how, but as a team, you actually have, and this is a whole process involving the whole team. You have to go in and figure out how to get the power back on to be able to guide the character through. And so, again, we're in this situation where everyone's helping each other because they have different roles, because they're in different places, because they're sharing information and helping each other, right?
So, but
And
it's
it's
yeah,
the only way
absolutely.
to progress.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And when we
And I
talk
mean,
about, well, yeah, I think what's interesting is when we say sharing information, it's such a simple sentence, isn't it? Just share. Okay. But there's a piece about you're using modern technologies and modern collaboration tools. And without us giving the game away, the question is whether you actually use them.
Yep.
All right. Whether people make assumptions about what they can and what they can't do, because we're looking at the creative thinking intelligence of the group. Right? I keep using this word intelligence a lot, but it means capacity. You either have it or you don't have it, or you have increments of it. And as you go through the workflow of the game, it increases. Why does it increase? Well, it increases because you've solved the problems. And that tacit knowledge that you've got, that tacit skills from doing it, stays with you, right? You don't forget it. And it's what's portable outside of the game. It's what's portable, to the next, transfers to the next problem as well. It's also the fun aspect. We've had lots of people say, particularly in big corporations, that they try very hard to dodge being on normal training sessions. But they try very hard to be not only on the CinQ training sessions, but to try and have training sessions in between the formal training sessions where they can keep on going, because it's so attractive and addictive in terms of of learning.
Yep. And it's this sort of situation where there's a clear objective and collaboration, which is often where people get really, really motivated, where
Yeah,
they want to get to the end. And all you need is one person in a team who says, "Hey guys, I want to get to the end. Let's set up another session to get there."
yeah,
And the whole team will follow.
yeah,
So again, you get in this notion of a really good team is a team where everyone motivates the whole team,
yeah,
right?
absolutely. So then we go to the lab.
Yep, absolutely. So let me just pour it over there. And, this is the final step. And I'm gonna, without, giving the how away,
So
I'm just gonna give this
just
last. Yeah,
just turn around, have a look at the environment. So one of the things that we haven't really talked about, but you kind of see that the type of environment we've created is a fun environment. It's of a high quality and of a high standard. We've tried to pay a lot of attention to the detail in what you've got, and I think for those of you who are actually watching this, you'll see, it's pretty cool. We have had esports teams playing the game and going through the game, and they love the game, right? Without a shadow of a doubt,
absolutely.
they love the game, and you know they're really concerned as to how how can they get it and buy it, which is what we're
Yeah.
solving right now.
One of our key constraints in building this was to make it interesting and usable across the board, from young esports players who are really into video games, who will be very regarding and demanding in terms of like graphics and usability, all the way to the opposite of, people who've never used a video game, who might barely know how to use a computer or a phone, and who really, really struggle with this sort of technology. Well, we built it with these people, testing it with teams of various skill sets to make sure that it's functional and usable for everyone, exciting for everyone, engaging for everyone, and interesting, right? Because that's the point. You want to get motivation. You want people to want to finish the game.
I think it's
That's
in a
how.
no, you're no, sorry.
No, no, no. I mean,
No,
I mean,
no,
it's just that's how you reach the objective, right? That's how you become a better team
no.
by wanting to be a better team.
But I think that just to build out, there's a multi-generational point here. All right, and we've had this happen to us quite a few times, where we've had people, in their early 20s and even very late teens, just starting university, who've worked with people who are in their 40s and 50s. And what happens is they share with each other the knowledge, the knowledge and skills and experiences they've each got to work as a team. And it's quite interesting how the older generation picks up very quickly um, the technology skills that the younger generation have, that they didn't have to learn. That's called growing up with them. Well, the older generation has missed out on that, and it's and vice versa in terms of problem solving, in terms of being able to think differently about certain situations, So it's really quite interesting having multi-generational teams, and it's something that if you guys out there are thinking about, it's worthwhile. Trust me, it works.
Sure. Um, just to finish on this last challenge, right? There's one last thing that happens is you're the technician, you get to this computer at the end, and oh wait, you have to hack it. Well, that's not your role, right? The hacker's the one that takes care of this. This is sort of us saying, well, now you really have to learn from each other. We're
Yeah, okay.
really saying you're a team. If one person has a skill, the team has the skill.
Yeah,
You should learn how to share this because
yeah,
the hacker totally can explain this to you.
yeah,
They have training, they have knowledge now. They want to share it.
yeah.
And this is where one of the things we often get is what's the replayability? Say we finish the game, what's next? Well, the first thing you do is you switch the roles around and you
Well,
get
I
a
think
totally different
no,
point of
but
view.
I no, but I think there's that, but I think the piece that you're missing because is that like here, like at the beginning with the locks, is dynamic content. So what we built throughout the game flow is the content will not be the same. That includes I'm pointing up because it's the maze, because the maze is up there, the ventilation shaft is up there. You will not
Yep.
experience the same ventilation shaft. So you may, as a team, write down all your notes and pass it on to somebody else, but that doesn't work because that changes. Okay, and
And
throughout,
just to be clear, it doesn't just change once you've reached the end. It changes every time you go back to the van,
okay,
right? So it's a continuously changing environment. You have to stay on your toes. You have
absolutely,
to be reactive.
yeah, and I think just bouncing off how you finished there was replayability is important, but and replayability is important from the point of view of the game having depth, but also what's important is that as your players or your participants change roles, then they get to really see the different perspectives of working in team. Well, that means whether you're working in sales, whether you're working in engineering, whether you're working in legal, or you're working within the factory or on the shop floor. You suddenly see, okay, we're not all separate silos, but actually we're all together going in the same direction. And there is a fundamental appreciation that takes place there because we've experienced that as one of the values and benefits that the participants talk about.
Absolutely. I think, at this point we could continue, but that would be spoiling the ending. What I will say is once you get this formula, there's actually one last bit. Um, you have to get out, right? I won't
You,
say more than that. There's a whole thing about that.
do you
But you
want
have
to
to get out of the building.
take us out the screen? Okay, so
Yep.
I think here I think you could take us all back to the van in the
Yep.
in the thing, so you actually see that. Yeah, we're just near to the metro. Yeah, so and you can see, and if you just stay still, Eric, just turn around, so you can just see the we've built this environment. It's a fun environment. Cars move, etc. But they don't do any damage. But you can see that. You can see the characters. They are fun type characters. You're about to come back to the van, which you have to get to the end. So I think that the summary or the final thing that we should end on is this is the first video game built for soft skills within a teamwork and leadership environment. You it's took us 6-7 years to build this, and people say, well, how did it take long? Well, because we've iterated it. Right, with our clients have taught us on how well how not only how to improve it, but how to shape it so that it can actually deliver real tangible benefits. You know, some of the questions that we get asked are things like, so how many sessions should we do? How long is the session and stuff like that? And I think what's going to happen is we'll address each of those questions within within a separate video. One of the things that you can do is you can contact us, or you can see on our website where we have not only a list of the programs that we run, in which CinQ takes part in, but there's an extensive FAQ that answers a lot of those questions. So I'd like to say thank you very much, Eric, and thank you very much for those watching, and we'll catch you on the next one, guys. Cheers.
Absolutely. Ciao.